everybody. Welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe.
So Joe and I are coming at you tonight from Joe's Garage as usual, and want to remind you not to forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already.
And any interesting noises you hear in the background are the chickens, the dogs are all out tired from doing, what were they doing today? They were so tired. They're all like passed out.
I know, they're all passed out in the bedroom. I don't know, like they were watching us out the window today.
Yeah, they were watching us work for hours and hours out in the yard while it didn't rain today, and it must have made them exhausted.
They're just slightly spoiled, right? So Joe and I were thinking that a good video to make would be something, many people have asked about our relationship. And I know many people are curious about just being in a relationship after you've been in a relationship with a narcissist. And Joe and I are in the unfortunate position where we both were in prior relationships for 20 years each with narcissists. We have kids, we have a whole life. And this is our first and last relationship after we've been with a narcissist, but we've learned things along the way. And we thought it might be a good idea, or it might be interesting to share some of what we've learned. So Joe and I I'm going to give you a little rundown of our relationship just for those of you that don't know. And then we each have 3 things that we think are, I don't know if the most important, but up there in importance.
Yeah, we took about half an hour or so, and just I'm sure if I spent hours meditating up on a mountain, the priorities be different. But just off the top of our heads, like what were important for us, as we learn. We thought it'd be a cool scenario. There's all kinds of scenarios that could happen, of course, but we just shared ours, with you. We thought it'd be cool.
So for those of you that don't know, I know a lot of you know, but Joe and I, so like I said, we're both in relationships with narcissists for marriages. Sorry, yes, that's true. We're in marriages, God, for 20 years each. We both have 2 kids, and we live together now, but we did live in separate states for a long time. We met over YouTube, actually.
Your channel.
Yeah, this channel. Yep. Mm-hmm. Joe was originally a subscriber, and he actually was trying to save me at one point because I mentioned in a video something my ex had done, and Joe recognized that my ex was lying to me about something, so he very politely, was so sweet, let me know. That led to a phone conversation, and then a couple months later, Joe came out to New Hampshire to meet me, and we just hit it off, right? We just say.
Yeah, we were both in a recovery process stage, understanding about our own codependence, our own demons, and kind of accepting how narcissists are, working on the solutions separately, not actively looking for anything. When you got 2 kids, 2 teenagers, and a couple of animals, well, Sharon has several, we weren't actively looking for anything. We were just kind of supporting each other along the way. No intention at all to move or drive 600 miles, and actually 900, to live with each other. It was nothing like that at all. I always told Sharon that I was going to write a book one day, maybe, When the Soul Leads. So it was like a God thing for sure.
It's kind of weird because sometimes I'll kind of sum it up and I'll tell you that here we are, we met over YouTube, and then Joe came to see me, and then things were great, and now we're living together. But that's true, but it's not quite as simple as that. I mean, Joe and I, we both know that God led us into this relationship. We ended up, when we first met each other, well, we started speaking last March. We met each other in June, but we had been separated, just for anybody who's interested. We weren't in a relationship with anybody else. We weren't looking for a relationship. And we actually went through this process together. We filed for divorce, together. We finished our recovery together. And that's been really instrumental in the strength of our relationship.
Yeah, we kind of crossed paths at the same time. My ex will be gone for 2 years coming up in June. So I was heavy into the recovery process and looking at my own childhood trauma and things of that nature, and well along the way, and Sharon from a distance at the same time was doing the same thing. And then when we got together, it was kind of like 2 heads prevail, and we've helped each other. I've gotten support from our friends, people on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's just kind of, as I said, it was nothing conscious or anything like that, not even intent. It was just kind of the stars and the planets were aligned, I guess, if you don't believe in God. But anybody who's been through narcissistic abuse and come out, just about everybody I know has a deep faith in God.
The thing is too, Joe and I, our relationship, the way that it started, and we became best friends rather quickly, and we spoke every day on the phone. Joe and I, it was just, I guess, it is unusual in a relationship. There wasn't like this physical part, it was literally because we were talking on the phone.
We were talking on the phone for a while, and we didn't even know what each other looked like. It was nothing like this is some dating website or anything like that at all. It was just like so many things in common. Our profiles, Sharon has 2 teenagers, I do. She loves animals, has animals, I do. Her ex is definitely a narcissist and is probably still in active addiction with alcohol. Mine was a narcissist for sure, drug addict. What happens, narcissists do what narcissists do, and then you're left picking up the pieces, totally devastated.
And the thing is, like, I should stress that, Joe and I, we did finish our recovery together, but we were at a good stage. Personally, I don't recommend you date anybody if you're at the very beginning stages of your recovery.
Well, I don't know. I'm definitely. I tell Sharon all the time, like, our pickers are broke. And I told Sharon that one time. She's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I was like, "Everybody that you've picked to be in a relationship, like, how's it ended up? We're not here to give advice. I don't know. Like, God works in God's way, so who am I to say anything? I didn't know I was ready, but in a way, my relationship with God was close enough where I just stepped out on faith.
That same exact thing happened to me. One thing I can tell you is that since I've been with Joe, my relationship with God has deepened, but it's also the two of us. I think I can speak for you, Joe, so tell me if I'm wrong. Every single decision that we made was made in prayer, believing that God led us to do this. Every single thing. Because I know, like, on the surface, it might sound a little kooky, right? Like, oh my gosh, like, people met on YouTube and now they're living together and they're still married, like that type of thing. But it was never like that. It was a deep faith. It was a deep speaking to God together, separately. I can tell you every single thing I've made a decision of regarding Joe has been with prayer.
Yeah, the same God that saved my ass from near death with this narcissist and the same God that had me look in the mirror to say, okay, what are my issues, is the same God that gave the okay, that led the way. That's how I see it.
Yeah, me too. And this relationship, we're going to get into the things that we believe are important, but this relationship has been, being in a relationship like this, it's been outstanding. It's really been fantastic because we have a level of, we're both former codependents, and that actually really works out for us because we have a level of empathy and understanding that maybe we wouldn't. And we also have a commitment to understand each other and to be there for each other. We have a deep commitment to each other, but I don't know, how can I say this?
I don't know if there's words to it. It's just the God thing, call God good orderly direction, or, we share the same faith. It's, we just kind of go with what was, like, there was a map. I think of it like, remember watching E.T. and E.T. leaving or was it Elliot that was leaving little Reese's? Yeah. Pieces on the ground that led up to his bedroom. It's kind of, he's like living little bits and pieces here, just like he connected the dots for me when I found out, holy crap, so I was with a narcissist, my mother was a narcissist, holy crap, how about my own childhood trauma? It's just, we were just following a roadmap. It just came to us on our recovery, on our journey.
So should we get into the things that we've learned, the things we think are important?
Yeah, that's cool. We got, like, you guys, we made like 3 bullet points each. And as I said, they could change in by tomorrow. But I'll lead off. I think for me at this moment in time, one of the most important things is being best friends first. I mean, that's how we met. I don't want to be the husband or boyfriend that gets with his friends and is bitching about his girlfriend or wife. And like the things that I want to do, I like to do with Sharon. Like we go for walks, we're going for hikes, we do work together in the yard. It's like, it's just cool to hang out with, you know. It's like, I usually like to do things by myself. I remember after my ex left, all the things that I had to do, including training and going to the gym and getting my kids to school and doing groceries and cutting the grass. And like, I don't like doing with other people. Not that anybody would, but they slow me down to get in my way. Like I had my own thing going on. I was cool with it, you know. But actually, like, I enjoy Sharon's company, and like we're best friends before anything else.
You know, it's funny when you say that, because when Joe and I were first at the beginning of our relationship, I actually don't even think we were really in a relationship yet. We were just like friends. And I shouldn't just say friends, because we really did become best friends really quickly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a romantic thing at that point. And I can remember saying to Joe one time, you know, I don't know that I could ever be in a relationship with somebody, because for me, just the thought of not having the whole bed to myself was just, remember that? I was like, I don't know.
I agreed. I was just like, yeah, and I can't, like, I don't need anybody like slowing me down or hold, you know, whatever I got to do. Like, they need to get the hell out of the way, because I got a lot of stuff to do.
Well, you know, it's funny too, because here I was initially, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could share. Like, I had a king size bed. I'm like, I don't know if I can share a bed with anybody else. Now, like, I end up pushing Joe so close to the side, he's gonna fall off the bed. I'm right next to you.
Being a single parent, for people out there, man, it's like, it's no joke. Like you're set in your ways, but I think the recovery process, especially for codependency, you tend to be teachable and have an open mind, and I think that's how we were able to mesh together well.
All right, so I'm going to go to mine. All right, so the one I put down as my first thing is unconditional love. I have absolute 100% unconditional love for Joe. And part of it is because we are best friends first. So I know him deeply. And there's not that level of, it's just like, not that you would be just on the surface or just like sexual stuff, but it's just like with Joe, I deeply love and respect him, and I have unconditional love for him. I know him. I know the person that he is. I know, you know, we made promises to each other and things like that, and I trust him completely. You know, which is kind of weird that I can trust you considering what happened before.
It is. It's like you would think that we would never trust anybody again after what happened to us. But, you know, you guys, what we say that too is unconditional love to the best of our ability. I mean, God alone probably is the only one who has unconditional love. There's, of course, conditions and expectations on any normal relationship. I was laughing at Sharon because I was like, well, you know, unconditional love. But I remember the narcissist I was with was, yeah, but it's really not cheating, because like we were fighting for like 4 days and technically that's separated, and we never really like officially, this was the first month, red flags all over the place. I was thinking and making decisions based on emotion, not logic. I learned the hard way.
Yeah, well, when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you don't even know what to think, really. You know?
It's codependence. We're so screwed up ourselves. We got our own, you know, I have more issues with a box of Kleenex tissues, but, you know, you're trying to sort that shit out, and it's a lifetime to do, and then you got this thing, and it's just like, holy, talking about like an inversion of nature. There you go.
Yeah, I agree. But it's like both of us felt like we just could trust each other, like for some reason. And I think part of it too, and this is where, you know, part of where we have God in this relationship, for a long time at the very beginning, we started speaking in March, but we didn't meet until June. So we did exchange photos. I mean, we knew kind of what we looked at. I can't speak. We know what you look like, but
yeah, but not even then. It took about a month before we even exchanged photos. We were talking like every day. It was really cool.
And there was like a big difference between, you know, looking at a photo and being with somebody.
Yeah.
I should actually tell you when Joe and I first met. So Joe and I first met in June. He came to New Hampshire to come and see me, and I was so cool with it all day. And then when I actually got to driving to the hotel, and I know that sounds crazy, I actually said to Joe one time, I was joking around with him, and I talked about how I met this guy I never met before at a hotel, and he was like, what? How could you do that?
Well, I texted you my driver's license so you could be able to look me up on whatever the hell they do, Google or whatever. But yeah, I remember that time too. It was quite exhilarating.
It was awesome, but I was so nervous. Oh my gosh, I was driving there and we were talking on the phone, and then he's like, "Are you almost there?" I'm like, "I'm in a parking lot of a grocery store."
Well, I came out there just wanting to thank Sharon, like for her channel, and just to say, hey, listen, I just wanted to come out. Like you've been a vital instrument, vessel, but so much more than that. What I'm trying to get at is she was somebody that I had to hug and say thank you in person.
Well, we definitely hit it off, would you say?
Yeah, yeah, we did.
But so unconditional love. So yeah, Joe and I, there are conditions, I mean, it wouldn't let him abuse me or something, but I love him despite anything. I really do.
Your well-being comes before my wants. It's you matter, your life matters, and one of the things is after being with narcissistic individuals, if you want to call them that, like you've faced your worst fears. You've been through just about everything that you can be through.
Yeah.
At least that's as far down as I ever want to go. I'm sure it is worse, but it's more of like your well-being matters more than what I want. And with where I was going to get to bullet point number two
Yeah,
is
go
like
ahead.
a mutual respect is what I had for number two. Just a respect to know what Sharon has been through, understanding it, and like just seeing it like on a daily basis, and how she handles herself. She walks the walk for sure. In knowing who she is, a single mom, the way her children are, they're just good kids, and just you have a lot of respect for somebody that has come out of an F5 tornado, that's rebuilding the city, because I experienced it myself.
Well, my second one is actually your first one.
Oh, okay.
Best friends first. That's really important to Joe and I feel the same way that he does in terms of I really enjoy doing things with Joe. Like I like being with him. I like just talking to him, or like whatever we do. We read the Bible together. We take walks. Like he said,
Play guitar for you?
yeah. Oh, that's yes. Joe plays guitar, and I'm gonna have to get him to play on the channel sometime because I got to tell you, when Joe plays the guitar, I can feel it inside. Like, I don't know if that sounds weird or not. And it's weird to me too, because we've been together for a little over a year. He never played guitar for me until I moved out here. And it's even just recent. It's my very favorite thing. At night, Joe and I will we both like work during the day, or I'm homeschooling and things like that. And usually at night, we'll sit down, and it is like the best time of the night. It's like quiet. He's playing the guitar. The dogs are all like at my feet usually, and at his feet, and it's beautiful.
It's cool to have a hobby, you guys. I've been playing for about 40 years. It's definitely a good outlet for me. That and going to the gym and training are good outlets for me. So I recommend to find a hobby, start one. Shit, man, your life is just beginning if you're out of a narcissistic relationship,
Oh, absolutely. So we have our little like rituals and routines that we do, and they're great. It's wonderful. Like I truly enjoy just being with you.
Yeah, and we do things like go for walks now that like the winter's over with, and work on the yard together, and like we're just like as thick as thieves, as they say.
Yeah, it's really great. Like we spend like loads of time together just doing things, like living life, and I think it's like different. Granted, partly it's like we live together, but we're like living our life, like whatever it is. We talk about, like, it's not like, oh, we're gonna go on a date here, or we're gonna do that. It just, we're doing it, right? Like we're living our life. We're together. We raised our kids together, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, you guys, it's definitely like a God thing. I don't know why. He decided to, well, because he loves us. We're his children, all of us are, but it's just, there's challenges along the way. Nothing's perfect, but it's cool, man. I love it.
I do too. All right, so it's your turn. What is your
Number 3.
third one?
Can't forget empathy. The one attribute, I think, which is the most vital to determine whether you're dealing with a narcissist or not, is a lack of empathy. I mean, think about that. The ability to understand how somebody else feels and how you affect them. And not only that, to care about it. Not so that you can use it as a weapon, The empathy part for me is an understanding of what Sharon's been through and what her triggers are, like silent treatments and yelling and being a little bit apprehensive when a guy would raise his voice or get upset or anything like that. That kind of goes hand in hand with respect. Because I respect Sharon, like you could be friends with somebody that's just a goofball and it's like, oh my God, I love him. He's got a good heart or her or whatever, but they're just goofs. Sharon has her wits about her, man, and her attitude is everything she speaks on the channel. She, as I said before, she walks the walk, but being empathetic towards that, especially because she knows that she could be vulnerable around me and I could be with her, and that ties in with respect. But to be able to like, we're we're still kind of in recovery. You know what I mean? We're helping each other along the line. It's like it was decades of rewiring of the mind, and that you can't do that consciously. It takes a spirituality and a lot of hard work, and then a lot of patience. But just knowing what her triggers are, and then trying to just kind of work through those and be mindful of her, and the same she does with me too, I think is crucial. Empathy, it's almost as like why I think the narcissists, they're people too. If a human attribute, like a holistic human, not a sentient being or a Buddha, but just a normal person, if one of the attributes that's required to make them human is empathy or love, there's some kind of offspring from that Darwin freaking, that linear line of evolution or whatever. I forgot the doctor who added into the DSM-5 about psychopaths, but he calls them interspecies predators. Not that all narcissists are. Yeah, Dr. Robert Hare. Not that all of them are. There's a spectrum, but the one I was dealing with, man, I don't know. They're just. I've come to accept that it's just the narcissist being a narcissist. Screw them. I got my own issues that I'm dealing with and coming to terms with. I have a chance to change those with God's help, but there's no way in hell I could change a person, place, or thing for that matter.
No, if you don't have empathy, you don't have empathy. But, we'll talk in a minute about what you and I have done and what we do if we have an argument, because empathy falls into that. Yeah. So I'll say my third one, and then we could talk a little bit about that. My third one is responsibilities. I feel deeply that I have a responsibility to Joe for several things. It's like this with my kids too, where, I was telling Joe earlier, for me, I love to do things for the people that I love. I enjoy doing it. It's not a burden or some, to-do thing. I enjoy doing it. And I feel like I owe Joe certain things. I owe Joe to be the best version of myself. So I try not to be selfish in the relationship. I mean, I'm sure I have. I know I have at times. But when I'm aware of that, I try to change it. I think I owe Joe to be in a good mood for the most part. I do that with my kids. I started that with my kids a couple of years ago. I feel like I owe people the best that I can be. Joe and I have God at the center of our relationship. God's first. He's before, both of us put God before each other. And it has to be that way. But it's kind of like, I speak to God myself, and God has told me like how he wants me to be. And I do feel like I owe that to Joe. I owe Joe, like, not that I wouldn't be this way, but the truth, or like an empathy. I'm very, and Joe and I both, we've been very vulnerable with each other. And there's been times where I've really, unburdened myself to him. And I feel like I just feel like I owe him, I owe him the best, I guess.
Yeah, and it could be a play on words, but I understand what you're saying. It's like, God first, and through God is to honor yourself. You're a humanitarian by nature. Like you had just gotten out of this entanglement a couple years ago, and immediately you wanted to reach out and help other people. I've seen the way that you've been a mother to your children. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. You're awesome. And happy Mother's Day to anybody, or late Mother's Day, because this is coming out Monday. But you're just like that, My nature, just at a normal nature level, I guess, if you call it, is I'm normally selfish or self-centered, and not to the extreme, but usually it's like I've struggled in my recovery with self-pity or self-condemnation, things I've needed to overcome. It takes work for me to think of others and stuff, but I know that God wants me to be the best version of myself I could be so that I could share that with you, the one I love, and my children and my friends. And that's what you're saying in a nutshell. But yeah, and that stems from your relationship with God and what he tells you, you know?
Yeah, that's true. So those are my three things, and we have Joe's three things. So you want to talk about things that we've learned or what we do if we have an argument or a disagreement?
Yeah, we could talk about that. As I said, nothing's perfect in this world, and we're definitely teachable and have an open mind. There's times when we just there's how do you say it, Sharon? Like there's not an expectation, but we don't know what the other person's thinking.
Oh, yes, a base assumption.
Yeah, so basically, Sharon thinks that I'm like on the same page as her, like I'm in the same mind frame or whatever, and I'm not, and vice versa. And when we get to that, what happens is that we're not on the same, like we're not on the same wavelength, and it can get really frustrating at times where we don't want to leave an unresolved issue at the table, because what happens is over time that builds up. The next thing that happens, you spill a glass of milk and there's a gigantic fight, and it had nothing to do with the milk. It was all the unresolved, issues that you had before. So when we're not on the same wavelength, we wind up talking in circles for a long time too. I get exhausted. Sharon's exhausted because she's more mature than I am, and she wants to make sure this is, squashed. What we found is when we get like that, we try to I think of in my mind, these gears turning in my head, and somebody putting a crowbar or something in between the gears to stop them. So what we'll do is, instead of talking for hours and then getting frustrated and wind up fighting more, is we'll stop and we'll do something together. Whether it be for 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes, don't even mention anything else. And somehow it puts a niche in that thought process. And usually towards the middle or end, we understand what wavelength we were on. And it's oh, okay. So it's not a huge fight over something that we totally forgot we were fighting about to begin with.
The thing about Joe and I is that we have a level of commitment to each other that even if we have a disagreement, because he's right, what tends to happen to us is we would have a disagreement on something and Joe likes to just separate for a little bit, right? I need to be by myself, whatever. For me, I really struggle with that. And Joe actually brought it to my attention earlier today. He was like, that's because your love language is touch or communication. So if we're having a disagreement, I want Joe to hold me, that's what I want. And so at the same time that I want Joe to hold me, he has this need to go away. You know what I mean? So it doesn't work out very well.
I've learned for the past 20 years with this narcissistic relationship is that when I react and I don't give myself time to process something, is just what winds up happening is my ex stole something from me or cheated or something like that. And at the end of the conversation or argument, I'm winding up apologizing for raising my voice or calling her a name that fits her very well. So I've learned unconsciously somehow through prayer, meditation, and spirituality to take a step back and let me process it. I ask myself, does it need to be said now? And does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said at all? And usually because Sharon's, one of her triggers was silent treatment. So I'd tell Sharon, listen, I need about 15 to 20 minutes to kind of process this on my own. So just know that, and I'll figure it out. Even when there's something wrong, it has nothing to do with her. Although now I know, to let her know, hey, listen, by the way, it has nothing to do with you. I just need a little bit of time for myself. Where Sharon, if she's feeling a little bit down or just discombobulated, like she wants me to hold her, I don't want anybody around out of just knowing how I was. I'm trying to grow, so I need to process things on my own first. So there's the different wavelength right there, let alone the disagreement.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think to myself, why can't you just hold me? Like,
Well, I'm thinking to myself, well, I got to give her space because that's my language, and your language is like, no, no, I need to be held.
Well, but you know what we've learned? We've learned that if that happens, we need to, just like Joe said, do something else. Just not talk about it, but this way we can be together, but he can process it and I can have like that contact.
Yeah, it's kind of like act your way into better thinking. Like usually I'm the problem. My best thinking got me involved with a narcissist for 20 years. Um, so sometimes it's like just, I remember I was outside working in the yard. I had a lot to do and we were in a disagreement, and Sharon just asked to go for a walk for like 2 or 3 minutes. She's like, we don't got to go all the way around the block, just like maybe up the street and down. We didn't talk for like 3 or 4 minutes. We weren't ignoring each other. But by the time I got back, it was all good because we just did something other than talk.
And the thing is, when I asked Joe that, like, first I let him just do yard work. It was like a little bit, like 15, 20 minutes. But I looked outside and I was like, oh, I don't know. Is he still in a bad mood? But I want, like, we had told each other we would, do this. So I went out, and I was nervous at first because that was like the first time I did that. I went outside and I was like, can we just take a walk? And just up to the stop sign or whatever. And he did.
Well, it took some prodding. It's not like, hey, I get to do it. I had a lot to do, but I was like, yeah, 2 or 3 minutes, it might be good. Like a lot of times, like as I said, Sharon is like light years ahead of me as far as spirituality. So sometimes, whenever she'll want to hold my hands and just kind of pray, just put it out to the universe. And at first, I'm like, damn it, don't you know I'm busy? But then I'm like, you know what? This is probably really good for me, and I need to stop and take a breath. We have this thing. There's a saying in the Bible, I think it's a psalm, I forgot which one it is, but we both had it, which was just funny. The saying is, be still and know that I am God. And there's one thing about me, like, I am not still. Like, I am constantly like the Energizer Bunny, at least when I'm in full operating mode. So when it happens, I'm like, yeah, this is probably like God saying, hey, chill out for a couple minutes here.
We both have learned, that's part of having God at the center, right? Like if one of us feels like, like if I said to Joe, I really feel like God is telling me this, or that we should do this, he listens. And it's the same with you. Like if Joe says to me, Sharon, like God wants us to do this, or I'm getting this like feeling from God, or we go with it. And that's been how our relationship has always been.
Yeah, and everything's a risk, guys, when you're in a relationship and you're doing things, but it's a calculated risk. When you know the same God, the same deity saved your ass from a narcissistic relationship, when he's talking to you through another person or through nature or through a song or whatever, like, like love responds to love alone. And you just know, it's like I said, the soul leads. It's not your conscious thought or unconscious. It's something beyond that.
There's been many times where Joe will say something to me, and I just know that God is talking through him. Like I just know it. Like it literally changes how I feel inside. So it really is, and I know not everybody believes in God. Just for us, that has been the driving force of our relationship. We listen to God right from the beginning. When we were first together, we used to, every once in a while, and we still do this, we'll be like, did you feel that? I feel like I feel something, like something changed in our relationship. And it would just like happen. And this is when, because the majority of our relationship, I guess we're closing on that not being the way it is anymore, but for a long time, last year, the majority of the relationship was long distance. We met in June. We saw each other in August.
Mm-hmm.
Was that it? And then he came and got me in December. So we did speak to each other every single day. And I just had this, like, my friends in New Hampshire were like, are you sure you should be moving out there? Like, what happens if something goes wrong? Or do you really know this guy? But it was hard to describe to other people. Maybe some of you are thinking that too.
It sounds nuts. I mean, if it was my sister or my loved one or something, but what the hell are you doing? Nobody understood anyways, like nobody understood. They just thought, hey man, why don't you just leave? Or like, what the hell's wrong with you? So, You'd be delusional if you felt it or saw it on your own. But when there's two or more people seeing it work, it's not delusional. I was delusional when I was with the freaking narcissist.
The thing about Joe and I is that we have been, I mean, just when it comes down to it, we both went through hell with these relationships, our prior relationships. It was horrible. And we have a level of understanding and empathy towards each other that we wouldn't have had, I don't think. Because Joe and I we recovered differently. And I feel like being able to see how Joe has struggled and he's seen how I've been, it gives us an understanding. It's almost like a deeper love,
I don't see myself like being in a relationship where I could have never been, I don't think, which is why we're together, with somebody that didn't go through what I went through. I would have been giving off red flags like silent treatment for months, and she cheated on you how many times she stole and you still stayed, and like it's just a blessing to be with somebody that has recovered or is in the deep stages of recovery and helping each other across the finish line.
It's been fantastic, and having God at the center, and we're for Joe and I, we have like a little family now, a big family, I guess. We're raising our kids together, we're living our life together, we have plans for the future together, and I feel like in a lot of ways, like both of us went through hell with these narcissists, and we just have a level of commitment that maybe we wouldn't have had before, and an understanding, and a desire to do what we have to do to make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, and I've become not cocky but confident because of my relationship with God and having a different understanding and perspective. Is like, what other people think of me is none of my business, man.
Well, the thing too, though, is that like I can understand some people thinking, "Wow, that's like crazy," but the reality is, when you know us or you're around us, like we have like probably the best relationship of anybody.
Yeah, and as I said, it's better than anything I would have. Like if I would have wished for anything at the end of myself, way short. It's just, there's a saying in the scriptures, if you're Christian, that I came to give you life and to give it to you more abundantly. It's paraphrase, but more or less like, yeah, it was all worth it.
That's a blessing. I feel that way too. And that's an amazing thing to be able to say after being with a narcissist for 20 years, and it was absolute hell. But I can tell you, like with brutal honesty, it was worth every single thing to have the relationship that we have now. It really was.
We've definitely evolved. Spiritually, mentally, physically, we have definitely evolved, and we help each other be the best we could be. Each other, you know what I mean? And that's just it's a huge blessing.
I would agree with that. So I guess there you have it. There's Joe and my take on relationships after narcissistic abuse and how our relationship is, and I hope it helps somebody. And if you are in a new relationship, or you're thinking about being in one, let us know.
Or even if you're still with a narcissist, It's just something that you can look for, possibilities, endless possibilities. It's ironic. I had to be hopeless in order to find hope. And I found that hope by starting off with no contact.
Yeah, no contact's definitely the way to go. So thank you, everybody. I will see you in Wednesday's video. And Joe and I might have a little surprise video coming out pretty soon. You'll see what I mean shortly, so keep a lookout for that. But other than that, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you next Monday.